In today's episode, we explore a murder case with a bizarre twist. When newlywed Zona Heaster Shue was found dead at the bottom of her stairs, it initially seemed like a tragic accident. However, it would soon be revealed that her death was far more suspicious. This revelation wouldn't come in the form of new evidence or witnesses' testimony, at least in the traditional sense. Instead, it would come from the victim herself. If you enjoy murder mysteries, then today's sponsor, June's Journey, could be just for you. June's Journey is a cinematic hidden object game set in the 1920s, where you play as gutsy detective June Parker, helping her solve the case of her murdered sister and brother-in-law. Along the way, you'll interact with myriad characters, some helpful, others less so, and unravel further twists and turns in this engaging story. Along with the hidden object side of the game, there are also other puzzles to solve, the ability to decorate your island and mansion, and regular special events with extra seasonal content to boot. It's no secret that the world is in a bit of a mess at the moment, to put it mildly. And it can be all too easy to fall into the loop of doom scrolling. I found that June's Journey provides me with an entertaining and relaxing escape. And you can begin playing June's Journey for free right now by scanning the QR code on screen or by clicking the link in the description. Born in 1876 in the tranquil stretches of Greenbrier County, West Virginia, Elva Zona Heaster, whose friends and kin simply called Zona, was the daughter of Mary Jane Robinson and Jacob Heaster. Her family lived modestly, like many in the Appalachian region, relying on the land and a tight-knit community to carry them through the seasons. Though records of her siblings are scarce, Zona's early life would have involved hard work, close family bonds, and the rustic rhythm of rural life. She was said to be a pleasant, well-meaning girl, not overly outgoing, but not shy either. A simple soul with hopes of love and stability in her quiet mountain town. As fate would have it, love would soon come calling, or so it would first appear. In 1896, a man arrived in town, a blacksmith by trade. His name was Erasmus Shue, a name that rolls off the tongue like a muddy wagon wheel. He was new to the area, renting a workplace at the local smithy, appearing quite eager to start anew. There was a sort of charm to him, or at the very least a confident air that attracted attention. Before long, his gaze fell upon young Zona, and she, in turn, was taken by the enigmatic metalworker. Their courtship was brief, and despite her mother Mary Jane's protests and warnings that she found something in him unsettling, Zona married Erasmus on the 20th of October, 1896. And just like that, a new chapter began. Or, some may say, the countdown to a tragic ending had commenced. Erasmus wasn't entirely new to matrimony. In fact, Zona was his third wife. His first marriage to Allie Esteline Cutlip ended poorly. His wife accused him of cruelty and harm. One might have thought that was enough of a red flag, but in those days, in a town with few bachelors, past sins were easily overlooked or unknown. His second wife? Well, their parting was even darker. He married Lucy Ann Tritt in 1894, and less than a year later, she was dead. The circumstances surrounding her death were murky, to say the least. Some accounts suggest she fell and hit her head on a rock. Others whisper that she was struck by a falling object while assisting Shue with chimney repairs. Regardless of the specifics, no official records detail the cause of her demise, leaving room for speculation and unease among those who knew the couple. Still, Zona knew none of this, or at least not the full weight of it. She moved into a small house with Erasmus just outside Lewisburg, and for a few fleeting months all seemed well. She finally felt like she could create a family of her own to love and cherish, but darkness does not linger far behind those who invite it. On the 23rd of January 1897, Zona's lifeless body was discovered at the bottom of the stairs in her home. The corpse was found by a young boy, Andy Jones, the son of a neighbour, whom Erasmus had sent on an errand to the house, ostensibly to ask Zona if she needed anything from town. But when the lad opened the door, what he found was the stuff of nightmares. The body lay crumpled on the floor, face pale, eyes wide, her arms folded unnaturally across her chest, as though placed there. He fled in fright, summoning help from those nearby, and soon the county doctor, George W. Knapp, arrived on the scene. But upon his attempt to examine the body, he found himself curiously blocked, both literally and figuratively, by none other than Erasmus himself. The grieving husband clutched his wife's body, weeping dramatically and refusing to let the doctor make a proper examination. His behaviour, though easily masked as grief to the casual onlooker, struck some as unusually theatrical. Still, Dr. Knapp noted peculiarities. Her neck seemed oddly loose, and her head lolled unnaturally to one side. Initially, he recorded the cause of death as everlasting faint, a vague term of the time implying sudden collapse. Later, this was changed to childbirth, though there was no confirmed pregnancy. Oddly, in the days that followed, Erasmus insisted upon dressing Zona for burial himself, highly unorthodox for the period, where such duties were traditionally handled by women in the community. He placed her in a high-necked dress with a stiff collar and wrapped a veil around her head, claiming it was her favourite. He fussed over her head and neck, never letting anyone get too close, and so the coffin was quickly closed. Zona was buried within days, but her mother, Mary Jane Hester, was not satisfied. Not satisfied at all. Now here's where the tale bends from simply tragic to otherworldly. Mary Jane, Zona's mother, began to pray nightly, asking for answers. She knew her daughter well, her mannerisms, her habits, and her gentleness. Something in her soul refused to accept the official explanation. There was no peace to be found, and then, according to Mary Jane herself, Zona returned. Not in memory, not in dream, but as a spirit. She claimed that for 4 consecutive nights her daughter's ghost appeared. Mary Jane would later describe the form as both luminous and sorrowful, wearing the very dress she was buried in. Zona told her mother what no living soul had yet heard, that Erasmus was not simply a cruel man, but a killer. His temper had turned monstrous when the dinner she had made for her husband lacked meat, a petty spark to a deadly fire. In a fit of anger, he had seized her by the throat and squeezed the life from her, snapping her neck in a moment of rage. Mary Jane awoke each morning more convinced, not fearful, but galvanized. Her daughter had returned not to haunt, but to seek justice. She memorized every word, every spectral detail, until the message was clear. This was no fevered dream. It was a call to act, and act she did. With determination fueled by maternal grief and perhaps the supernatural, Mary Jane approached the county prosecutor, John Alfred Preston. At first skeptical, Preston eventually agreed to investigate. Zona's body was exhumed for a full autopsy. The findings were irrefutable. Her neck had been broken. Her windpipe was crushed and there were marks of strangulation. The ghost's tale incredibly matched the medical reality, and Erasmus was arrested. It would be the beginning of one of the most curious murder trials in American history. In June 1897, Erasmus Shue stood trial for the murder of his wife. Prosecutor Preston avoided ghost stories in court, focusing instead on the physical evidence. But the defense, they made the curious decision to bring up the supposed visions, perhaps to make Mary Jane appear delusional. And so, Mary Jane took the stand and recounted her daughter's visits from beyond the grave. The jury listened, enraptured. Her voice was steady, her tale unwavering. While the judge reminded them to base their verdict on tangible evidence, the testimony of the ghost, odd as it may be, undoubtedly left its mark. Reporters in attendance scribbled furiously, capturing every word of the surreal moment. A grieving mother calmly explaining her spectral conversations. Spectators leaned forward in their seats, transfixed. Never before had a court heard testimony so ethereal and yet so compelling. The effect on the courtroom was undeniable. In the end, Erasmus was found guilty of slaying his wife and sentenced to life in prison. Never again did he lay hands on another soul. However, for him, the life sentence would be quite short. Just 3 years into his incarceration at the West Virginia State Penitentiary, he succumbed to an unknown illness that swept through the prison. One could say that justice in the end found him, delivered not just by court and jury, but by the voice of the woman he thought he silenced, and in the final erasure of his identity with an unmarked grave. The Greenbrier Ghost has echoed through the corridors of folklore ever since. It remains the only known case in US history where the testimony of a ghost helped to solve a murder. In the decades since, Zona's story has inspired plays, books, and documentaries, amongst other things. Local tourism celebrates her story, as though the very soil of Greenbrier County whispers her name to curious passers-by. At her grave are these haunting words. Her death was mysterious, and she comes back to tell the truth. Writers, ghost hunters, and historians alike have pored over the case, drawn to its singular blend of crime, grief, and the supernatural. The story persists not merely because of its oddity, but because it raises a deeply human question. What if love, even beyond the veil, could still demand justice? The state of West Virginia has erected a state historical marker near the cemetery where Zona is buried. Visitors often leave flowers or tokens there, some out of curiosity, others in reverence. Each year the legend is retold, proof that even the dead, under extraordinary circumstances, can still have their say. Zona Heaster Shue may have been laid to rest in 1897, but her voice and her spirit refused to remain silent. The Greenbrier Ghost reminds us that some truths are too loud to stay buried, and that, just perhaps, the dead do not always rest until justice is done. Thank you for watching, and thank you to today's sponsor, June's Journey. Don't forget, you can begin playing for free right now by scanning the QR code on screen or clicking the link in the description below. Right then. Take care, and I'll see you next time with another story to make you say, well, I never.